Yeah, I know. But I also said, you know how it goes on this channel. So, said I was going to take a break for the week, but felt in the mood to rewatch since I threw this on last week at some point and then just wasn't in the mood to record. Gummo from 97 by Harmony Korine. This was his directorial debut after writing the screenplay for Kids that Larry Clark directed, which I did a video on Kids, which is what led us here, basically. This kind of ties into Nosferatu and that universe in a way, because Werner Herzog, the fantastic director who did the 79 version of Nosferatu, publicly has stated many times, I think that there's an interview with Harmony Korine and him right after this movie came out. I could be wrong, but for some reason that sounds right. He's a huge fan of this movie and Harmony Korine in general. First off, if you haven't seen Gummo, I don't even know how to describe this movie. I mean, we're going to get into it. This movie, just like Larry Clark's Kids, is not for everybody. This movie is not for probably 95% of people out there. It's a very, very niche audience for Harmony Korine movies. And I'm not really a huge fan of his post this film. I've seen this movie. I haven't seen it in forever until I just rewatched it recently. But I know he did Spring Breakers with Selena Gomez after this. And then I don't think I've seen another Harmony Korine film, or just forgot if I did. So I'm not huge on him, but I think the guy's a genius. And I always have. As soon as I saw Kids, whenever that was, and learned that he wrote the screenplay, and then saw those classic Letterman interviews with him, I said, this kid is an absolute genius, because he was only 18, 19 when he wrote the screenplay for Kids for Larry Clark. Then he went on to write and direct this. So this was his passion project, unique vision. This was his complete vision that he was able to get on screen in full without any, pushback by studios or anything like that. So everything that he imagined in his head for this movie pretty much got realized and thrown up on the screen. Now, there is a companion piece to this that I've never seen, The Diary of Anne Frank Part 2, which is just a bunch of excess footage from when he shot Gummo. He said that he can make 3 more movies or some shit from all the stuff that he shot for Gummo. So I'm guessing it's just outtakes and other shots and scenes that we don't see in this movie. So maybe I'll check it out. I mean, this is a very, very good movie. Let me say that. But it's not a movie I'd throw on often. I can also say that, with 100% certainty. I would watch Kids more often than this movie. And I wouldn't watch that often either. But this movie, the way that it's shot, the whole non-linear narrative, the collage of scenes, vignettes that we see, and characters that we meet and don't really find out too much about, and all of that is very, very well done. And just like Kids, it's very authentic. It feels so real. The dialogue, I don't know how much was improv in this movie. I know not a lot was in Kids. But everything in this movie sounds and looks like shit that, again, it's stuff in Kids, stuff that I grew up around. People I knew, and people that I knew that did shit in this movie. Maybe not 100% exact, but that similar world. So it really hits home watching these movies. But basically we have these 2 kids, Tumblr and Solomon. Solomon's the younger one. And Tumblr is the main character of this movie, which Harmony Korine found him watching some talk show. And the name of that episode was My Child Died from Sniffing Glue. And this was one of the kids that was on there. He was a paint sniffer. And that's how he ended up casting, I forget the guy's name, Nick Sutton? That might be it. Or it could be a completely different name, but that sounds right. That is his name. I just cheated and looked. And as Korine said on Letterman, Sutton, he was a paint-sniffing survivor. But that's how he ended up casting Tumblr, which I think is just a great story in and of its own. But you basically follow Tumblr and Solomon as they just pass time in this town that was devastated by a tornado. And the opening narration, I'm pretty sure it's Korine doing the narration, right? If somebody knows, let me know, but I'm pretty sure it's him. And the cinematography, as I said, is great, and it looks real. Like, it looks like a documentary like Kids does. You see a dog on top of the TV antenna on top of the house. He's impaled on the antenna from the tornado, and he tells about the school was crashed into and a few people died, and his neighbor that he used to play ball with was cut in half and they still never found his head, and he always thought that was funny. There's some really funny stuff in this movie. And then there's just stuff that is so weird and so out there, and everything that this movie deals with, which is a lot. Poverty and mental illness and prostitution and homophobia and so many things. Anything controversial that you can imagine probably shows up somewhere in here. If you don't like cats, then you'll be fine. If you like cats, don't watch this movie, because there's a ton of them that get killed in this movie. But before my purposeful attempt to make the intro to this all over the place just like the movie goes off the rails and I lose control, let's jump into Gummo from 1997. The sound design's really good in this movie too. It opens up, the first thing you hear when you start this movie is a bunch of young kids singing random names. Has a pussy, and mommy has a pussy, and
Mommy has a pussy, and Aunt Lil has a little tiny pussy.
it's so weird. Then you get the whole narration by who I think is Harmony Korine. Someone let me know if they know. It's going to drive me nuts now. With the montage of the destruction the tornado caused in this town.
Xenia, Ohio. Xenia, Ohio. A few years ago, a tornado hit this place.
And then we see the bunny boy, which, if you haven't seen this movie, here he is. He's like a mute kid who just dresses like this for fun all the time. Like, through this whole movie, every time you see him, he's dressed exactly the same, hardly anything on, except for the bunny ears and what, he has shoes and socks or something. That's it. And he doesn't talk, he's mute. And then we get the song that opens this movie with the bunny boy on a fucking overpass. He's pissing on cars below. We get this song that I know I've heard before. It's probably some like oldie classic. It's annoying as shit. It is so annoying. But I found myself singing this shit for days afterwards. It just creeps into your head somehow. And you just start humming it.
And I love my little duck, and the duckling loves me. I'll cherish my duck 'neath the green bay tree. My little duck goes quack, quack. Little hen goes cluck, cluck. Little pig goes mm. Little rooster goes cock-a-doodle-doo, doodle-doo, doodle-doo.
Oh, it's so annoying. But I will say it works for this movie perfectly. Like, I couldn't think of a better song to start this movie off than whatever the hell that shit was. Now, just like in Kids, we have Chloe Sevigny in this movie, who was dating Harmony Korine during his whole beginning of his career, basically. I forget when they broke up. I forgot if she's in Spring Breakers. I don't remember. I haven't seen him forever. But she's in this, and I thought it was interesting watching the title credits again, that she's the costume designer for this movie. Oh, and we have Linda Manz in here, too, who plays Solomon's mom. And she's not in this much. I mean, just like most of the characters in this. Like I said, it's all vignettes and short sequences that are just strung together. But there are a few characters that we see more than others. Mostly Tumblr, Solomon, and then Chloe Sevigny's character, Dot, and her sister. Looks like her sister or her friend, but they look like fucking sisters. They look like twins at points. And their littler sister, is that, again, is the sister? I don't know. But the three girls And the two boys, that's basically what I could have started with, are the ones that you follow throughout this whole movie. So yeah, like I said with the cat thing, right after the opening credits of this movie end, kid just takes a cat and stuffs him into a water-filled barrel and drowns his ass in there. Like I said, if you're an animal person, this movie might rival Cannibal Holocaust. Then you see Tumblr in this shithole car with this girl, and they're making out, and he's feeling her up, and then he's just casually just comes out and says, "You got a lump on your breast," and freaks her the hell out. And I've done that. I've lived that experience. I didn't let her know as like devoid of emotion and concern that he does. And by all accounts that I know, she's fine nowadays. But that's what I mean with this movie and with a lot of Korine's scripts. That they're just so raw. And they show you things that go on in the world and go on in life that most other art and film doesn't want to show. And that's why he's always been so controversial. This movie is just as controversial as Kids, in my opinion. I would say so. There's just as much disturbing shit that goes on in here than you get in Kids. But same bottom line to both of them. They're true to reality. And that's why they work so well. And that's why it hits so hard and could pull on different emotions and even on memories from your own life, even if they're not exact. It wasn't in no shithole call like this, I guarantee you that. But she ends up kind of freaking out and getting nervous and starts touching herself to make sure. And then we see her later on that she has breast cancer and that she has to get one cut off. And she has like a small little scene in the hospital where she's talking like her friends. That's the last and only times, though, we see this person, which actually makes it more impactful because it's kind of just like life. You meet some person and you find out some tragic news, that they received, that she's got breast cancer or she has to have an operation. You'll see them, you'll talk to them briefly about it, you feel bad, but then life goes on and then you don't see them again, and how often do you think about it again? Like, it really is great at showing those type of interactions. So then we see with like sludge metal, death metal shit playing in the background. We see Solomon and Tumblr riding their bikes, and this whole movie, like I said, is basically just adolescents passing time. That's basically how you can sum this movie up. How are they going to pass their time and get through another day? And a lot of it includes killing animals, paying money to somebody to have sex with their Down syndrome sister. Like, I'm not making any of this up. We'll wait for some of the other things, but some of the things these people do to pass the time sounds like a blast. And then this is also where we meet Dot, played by Chloe Sevigny, and Helen, her sister friend, whatever, and the littler sister, Darcy? I think Darcy. It is fucking Darby. See, I don't know why I second guess myself. Darby, the youngest one. And the three of them, I'm guessing they're sisters now, like final, because they're all in a bedroom. There's 3 beds. I'm assuming they're all related. But who knows with the characters in this movie? They're putting tape on their nipples, not the younger one. Just Dot. So we get Chloe Sevigny tits in this movie. And they're putting tape on their nipples and taking it off to try to make them stand out more. And then it cuts to them all jumping on the bed with Every Day playing from Buddy Holly. It's a fun scene. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a random event in these people's lives. But this is where Korine's direction and writing and just weirdness really shines, because you hear the song as they're jumping and dancing on their beds. And then it cuts to a close-up of Chloe Sevigny's character, Dot. And she's just staring into the camera. And then the music fades out, and in comes the kids that were singing at the very beginning about the pussies. They start singing Every Day.
Every day, it's getting closer, going faster than a roller coaster. Now let your thrill shake out high. Hey, hey, hey.
And then it kind of condenses to just one kid singing the song. And then the full actual song kicks back in, and then it just goes to the next scene. It's a fun scene, but that's how this movie is. It's just little slices of these people's lives throughout this town, and then off to the next random one. And another thing that really adds to that raw look and feel of this movie and how everything just sounds, the dialogue, so organic, is because a lot of these people were not actors or actresses. They're just regular people. And they did the same thing in Kids. They just used a lot of non-actors. And Korine has said many times that he prefers using non-actors because you can get stuff out of them that you can't get out of a professional actor. And it shows throughout this whole movie. Now, I know some of these people did other things. I mean, Chloe Sevigny obviously is the biggest one, and I guess Linda Mance too, just for her career in the past. But everybody else in this movie never really did anything else that I know of. I looked up the kid who played Solomon. I forget his name, the actor's name. But he was in something with Derek Mears, Jason from the reboot, in like 2012. And that's like all to his name for credits for movies or anything. So most of the people in this movie are just random people. And it really helps the movie along with the type of film that this is. Absolutely. So we see Tumblr and Solomon are going around killing all these stray cats, then bring the cats into a local butcher because he wants to sell them the meat to a Chinese restaurant. Did I get that right? It sounds right.
And the Chinese restaurant, you know, the one that buys all my stuff, the guy that owns it had a heart attack and died, so I guess they're getting ready to go out of business.
Sounds like he's selling it to this Chinese place. So that's how they get their money. And I don't know if they always use their money this way, but they end up going to this guy's house whose sister has Down syndrome, it looks like. And they pay him to let them go in and take turns fucking her. And then they leave. So that's how they're spending their day right now. And then we hear this narration a few times throughout the movie. And it's whispered too. That's why I can't tell if it's Harmony Korine or not. But it does sound like him. I'm going to keep sticking to that. But he whispers, these two brothers. A lot more whispery, but you wouldn't hear me. But he starts whispering, these two bald brothers, they killed their parents, and they never have scuffed up shoes, and claim to be raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, all the most weird stuff that you'd never want to really know about somebody is what you get with the introductions, quote unquote, to some of the characters in this town. And then the whole scene with them is the bald brothers just start beating the shit out of each other, you know, in a fun, fucking around way, and say, what are we eating tonight? You cooking? And then it goes to the next scene. And the next scene is disturbing as hell, as we see just footage of some younger girl. She looks like 12, 13 or something like that. But the voiceover is her saying that she started getting, you know, molested and possibly raped by her father. And she says, the first time I was 4 years old. And she starts to describe what happened. Honestly, from what I remember, that I think is the most disturbing thing that you see or hear in this movie. There's a lot of other stuff for sure. But I think that's like the most, damn, like, what the hell am I watching right now and listening to? That scene right there. Oh yeah. And then you get the butcher that Solomon and Tumblr are selling the cats to, lets them know that they got competition on the streets, that this other young kid who happens to be a cross-dresser and takes care of his 90 or 91-year-old catatonic on life support grandmother, he's going out and he's killing cats too, but he's poisoning them. They like use their BB guns and stuff and shoot them. He's going out and poisoning. So I don't know if it breaks the etiquette of the stray cat killing in Xenia, Ohio, but they seem to be pretty pissed about this. So much so to the point that they kill this guy's grandma later on with just a flick of a switch. But then we get a random scene. I don't think we see any of these characters again, of this girl and these two guys, and all the guys have their shirts off throughout this whole movie, which, yeah, makes sense. But they end up just having this short conversation about how they feel about black people. And they use a lot more crude language than that. And then it just goes on to the next scene after that. And that next scene is Solomon and Tumblr huffing model airplane glue or some type of glue. I guess paint was too on the nose and triggering for the actor who played Tumblr, so they didn't include paint sniffing. They got them sniffing glue instead. And then he starts talking about his brother, Tumblr's brother, who went off to live in a big city, and he dresses like a woman, and Solomon says, is he pretty? He says, I guess. I mean, he has a boyfriend. That brings me to the title of the movie, Gummo, which I'm not a big Marx Brothers fan, but I know the 5 Marx Brothers, and Gummo Marx is the one who never made a film and supposedly was a cross-dresser. So Korine said in interviews that the title to this movie has nothing to do with anything in the movie, like the content. But I guess maybe you could stretch it with, one, the kid who has the grandmother that he's taken care of, who cross-dresses, that we see later, and this conversation that they have here about Tumblr's brother being a cross-dresser. So maybe that's like a small little link and thread from stuff in the movie itself to the title Gummo. I don't know, but made me think of it. And I will say this though, with the fact that Sutton, who plays Tumblr, was not an actor in any way, he does a very good job in this movie. Same with the actor who plays Solomon. All the acting is very, very good in this. And like I said, very authentic feeling, very organic feeling. So everyone involved in this did a very good job. But Bunny Boy ends up going into this, I don't know, this junkyard lot, this trash all over the place, that these 2 boys are playing in. And they have their little fake guns and like cowboy hats. And then they see Bunny Boy come. And don't forget, he's mute, so he don't talk. And they just scream out, hey, rabbit, you smell like shit. I don't like rabbits. And they start fake shooting to death Bunny Boy. And he ends up falling on the ground. And then he plays dead for way longer than you would think any kid would play along with this game. But he stays down the entire time. They raid through his pockets, and then they just leave. We go on to the next scene.
I don't like rabbits coming to my fucking house. I kill!
Then we get another scene with a character that, to my recollection, we never see again. This kid is playing tennis, and Dot and Helen are watching him play. And then this other girl comes who shaves her eyebrows off later on. We see her a few times throughout this movie. But the kid who's playing, and she's singing the ABC song. Like, now I know my ABC. And she's singing it multiple times as she walks through the park. I don't know anybody who does that.
Now I know my ABCs. Next time won't you sign with me? ABC, a chief, a charge, a K-O-M-P.
But the kid playing tennis, Dot is kind of, looking at him, hitting on him a bit, and he starts explaining how he has ADD and that he's on Ritalin, and then like this voiceover while he's playing tennis from him explaining his whole disorder. And then Dot and Helen walk away, and that's the last that we ever see that kid. All right, and then if there's no issues copyright-wise, you'll see this play out. But then we got this scene with Harmony Korine making a cameo, playing this drunken kid who's on a couch with this gay black dwarf. I think he's a dwarf, even though he is credited as midget at the end of this movie, but I don't think that's the right term. I think he's a dwarf. It doesn't matter either way. It's just as weird, but just some of the stuff that Korine's saying. He's saying that his mom was born, had a Mexican midwife that helped give birth to her. Then at 30 years old, his mom went through menopause and grew a mustache. And then he tries leaning in to kiss the black dwarf. And the black dwarf says that he's gay. But then when Korine's character tries, making a move on him and says, come kiss me, he's like, nah. He's like, I'll hug you, and gives him a hug. It's so weird. It's so out there. I don't know what it's supposed to mean, except for nothing. But it is entertaining as hell. Especially, I just love the way that Harmony Korine talks. the way he talks and the way his thoughts come out of his mind into word. I don't know, man. I just love everything that I hear come out of Korine's mouth. Then the narrator, whisper guy, tells about his father and says that his father was mugged on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and for the rest of his days on Earth, he never celebrated the holiday because of it. Then we cut to a scene with a cat hanging from a branch, and Tumblr and Solomon are just whacking this dead cat corpse with sticks for no reason, apparently, with death metal in the background over it. Then we get a little cute scene. Solomon goes home, and I guess his dad passed away years prior, and his mom, played by Linda Manns, which, watching it again just now, I feel like the fact of her being an actual actress kind of hurts it a bit. You know, since everybody else in this movie is not an actor, except for Chloe Sevigny. There might be one or two others, but I feel like it takes away a little bit from the authenticity and that raw feel of it, because she puts on Solomon's father's tap shoes and she starts tap dancing, and Solomon, he has no weights at the house, so he takes a whole bunch of silverware and tapes them together so he can lift them as weights in front of a mirror downstairs, and she's trying to get him to smile, and then she puts on this little tap performance, but it feels a little too acty, if that makes sense. So still a cute scene, but I don't know. I wonder how it would have played out with just another random non-actor or actress playing the mom of Solomon here, and not someone who was an established actress. Then we briefly meet this albino chick who wants to give a handy to Patrick Swayze. I swear to you. Well, that's right. We meet Tumblr's father briefly in this, and they have a little conversation in the car about Tumblr's mom and asking the father, does he still miss her, and blah, 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 blah. Then they end up hanging out with a group of friends. Again, all the guys, no shirts on. There's like 3 girls there, and they're all drinking. They're all arm wrestling. The gay dwarf is there, and he beats like the tough guy of the group in an arm wrestling match. And then he doesn't even want to like be happy about his win because the other guy gets so pissed off, and he starts wrestling the chair and destroying it in front of everybody. It's an entertaining scene too. Then we see Dot and her sisters cleaning their cat, which Tumblr and Solomon end up killing at the end of the movie. And we see the girl from the beginning who had the lump on her breast giving her a little speech that now she has to get one cut off, and I know that how guys are, and they might be nice to me, and then as soon as they find out, then they'll stop talking to me. And then we have the scene where they go into the kid who's their cat killing competition. Remember the cross-dressing kid who takes care of his catatonic grandma? They break into his house and they have masks on, so it seems like they're gonna beat the shit out of this kid, but he's not there. But the grandma is, and she's in her bed on life support. And he just says, like, this is no way to live, and he shuts the machines off. So they kill this woman, and then they leave. Then we see the ABC singer woman from earlier. She starts shaving her eyebrows after giving this weird speech about she's holding her doll, but she calls it her baby, and I like to touch my baby's head, and I like to kiss him on the forehead, and shit. Just like that, almost. But I like how we hear music on the accordion being played a few times throughout this movie, mostly when we see the bunny kid. And then after she's done shaving her eyebrows, we cut over to the bunny kid playing an accordion on the toilet. So I don't know, you gotta see it, but just like everything in this movie. But I like that. The fact that we hear the accordion multiple times in this movie, then we see the bunny boy playing it near the end of the movie. I don't know. But so Dot, Helen, and Darby, the sisters, their cat's missing. And they don't know it's dead yet, and we don't either. And they're passing out flyers and saying, you know, call us if you find the cat. And then they get in the car with this creepy old dude, and he drives them up in the middle of nowhere. And then he says, maybe he's looking for something under the seat. Maybe I can reach it. And then he tries groping Helen's coochie, as they call it. And then they all start freaking out at him, rightfully so, and saying, "What the fuck are you doing? You're trying to touch her coochie?" And then he just drives off saying, "It's nothing new for trash like you." And then we get what is probably the most famous scene in this movie. Even if people haven't seen it, they might have seen this, with Solomon taking a bath. And it is the most disgusting, dirty ass water you can ever imagine. How did that water get so dirty? There's no way this kid was that dirty. Like, unless he shit right in the water, in the tub, right before the scene started, there's no explanation for why that water is so dirty. But he's taking a bath, and there's a piece of bacon taped randomly onto the wall, right next to him. It's so random, and he's eating spaghetti that his mom made him. And then these two younger black kids show up at the door, and they're selling Crunch bars for $1 for some charity. But then they start bragging and saying, we're going to start selling these candy bars, and then we're going to have all the bitches, like, we're going to get all the money. So I don't know if they're running a scam, probably. And Solomon's mom brings the candy bar back into the bathtub and says, "You want dessert?" And she's shampooing his hair right on top of the tray with the spaghetti he's eating. So it's falling into it. And then we see that it's pouring rain out. And we see Bunny Boy in a pool with Dot and Helen, the sisters. And they're all taking turns making out with the Bunny Boy. So, I mean, good for him. And we have the song "Crying" by Ray Orbison playing over this whole last sequence, which the character of Tumblr mentions that song when he's telling the story about his cross-dressing brother to Solomon earlier. So that's cool how it ties back in that song we actually hear. And then after, Bunny Boy's getting some with Dot and Helen in the pool, we see Tumblr and Solomon killing their cat. Then Bunny Boy runs through a field after we get a little montage of the tornado and stuff sweeping through this town. And the Bunny Boy just holds the cat up to the camera, and he breaks the fourth wall and just holds this dead cat up. I told you, if you like cats, this movie is not for you. And then it just ends with the girl who shaved her eyebrows off in bed with, I don't know who, some woman, her mom or something, singing, "Well, Jesus loves me. Oh, Jesus loves me." Then the lights go out and she says, "Dial it down. It's time for sleep." And she sings it again as the credits roll. Then some death metal kicks in and the credits really start. And that's Gummo from 1997. It's one of those movies that you can't talk about this movie like fully. You have to experience this film just like kids. This is a type of film that you need to fully experience, watching and listening to everything that goes on, and then taking it all in the best that you can. But I think this is a great, great film. I think it's excellently made. Like the cinematography, the director of photography, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but I know he was a famous French cinematographer that Korine really liked some of his work, and he was able to get him for this film. So, I mean, the cinematography looks great. The sound design's great. Just how realistic it all is, and how it shows parts of life that happen all the time, and things that people go through, and things that adolescents do to pass the time that you never see talked about, or you never see portrayed so accurately in movies. And that's, like I said, something that Korine just excels at. But that's Gummo, and that was one hell of a rewatch, let me tell you. It is such an out there movie. But if you haven't seen it, you sat through this, definitely check it out, because it is worth a watch, even if it ends up being totally not for you. And just a weird movie that you have no idea what's going on. Why the fuck would anyone watch this? That's thoughts that a lot of people will have watching this movie. Give it a shot, though. If you're a film fan, especially, like if you're a fan of filmmaking and everything that goes into it, you probably have a higher chance of liking this. But, alright guys, Hope everyone's having a good morning, afternoon, or night. I will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.
Little guinea pot a rack, but my rooster goes cock-a-doodle-doo.